Hello, hello. I think we are live now. So today on GOAT, Game Engine on Air today, we finally got Felix Braberg, which means Ad Mon man number one. Welcome, buddy.
Thank you.
Do you need intro, do you think?
I can introduce myself.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, my name is Felix. I'm Swedish. I've been in the industry for 8 years, basically being on the other side of what earns you money. Whenever you earn money from ads and mobile, you're earning money from either a DSP or a network pretty much. And yeah, I worked on that side. Then I was the ad monetization manager for Tetris, Eastside Games, and a couple of other studios. And now I'm a full-time consultant. You can also catch me on the 2.5 Gamers podcast. We're doing it twice a week now. So yeah, a lot of podcasting.
And actually, Felix is one of the rare people on Earth that really likes ads in games. We still cannot understand, but respect.
I just think it's cool. No, I just think it's cool. I think it's one of these things that's just like very clever, right? So basically, ads is turning eyeballs into money, and that's very cool because it basically is to open up so much stuff for free to play. And basically solves a lot of problems, right? So yeah, it solves that you basically can discover new apps, and it just very eloquently does it, right? So just very cool.
Yeah, not like the random users that, hey, we cannot watch the ads because of the game. Please remove the game so that we can watch ads. Like there are some bullshit comments. Well, we are pretty curious about who is Felix. That is the goal of our actually podcast, which means when you're not inside the ad monetization, inside mobile gaming, who are we actually talking about? Who is Felix?
Who is Felix? I mean, nearly 2 meters tall, from Sweden, very blonde. Dad worked for IKEA for 30 years, so on paper I'm very Swedish. Didn't grow up in Sweden though. I grew up in a bunch of countries, mainly in Belgium. So a bit of an expat brat. But before gaming, I was working in finance and food, of all places, and kind of just fell into mobile quite accidentally, but I'm very glad I did. Yeah, in my free time, I like to podcast, cook, long walks on sunny beaches.
From finance, food to mobile gaming, I think if anyone asked me what is the opposite industry of mobile gaming, I would definitely direct them to finance. Tell me about the transition.
Finance was just a pit stop after university. I was there for 8 months and I hated it. I was working in a wealth manager, and man, it was just misery. You can sit in the same seat for your whole career and you just move up the salary grades, and it's just not very fun. And you have to be a very special person, and I wasn't. So I quit after 8 months to start a food company called Eat About, where you could eat in the home of a chef in London. Terrible idea, but I sunk all my money into it. So I had no money after 2 years, big credit card debt. And one of our investors was an investor in a DSP called Remerge. And basically he gave me a job because I had no money. And that's how this whole thing started. And that was nearly 9-10 years ago, or quite a while.
Thanks, Remerge, for gaining this guy, bringing to the industry. So I would like to also ask about your hobby stuff. Basically, what is something you do regularly, or maybe people wouldn't guess about you? It can be anything.
I'm trying to get into kite surfing. But I've only done it for a week, and it was 2 years ago. So I would love to say that I'm a kite surfer. I'm really not. Honestly, in my free time, a lot of time last year was just spent traveling and working, which is really boring answer. But this year, I'm actually happy to say that I have free time, and it's being spent doing a bunch of different stuff. Everything from cooking to going to restaurants to traveling, all these things.
That's really cool. I think especially kite surfing, 2 weeks ago, I learned, it really sounds ignorance, but I learned what is kite surfing literally 2 weeks ago when I went to a forest big park here. I saw a guy he has giant bigger than parachute stuff, which is kite surfing. I went to him he was kind of just free chilling. I asked hey, can I watch you? How is it going, etc. And we chatted for 10-15 minutes, and he taught me the basics. I was literally fascinated because he was kind of it's, I don't know, it's dancing with the wind, actually. That's awesome. So I think it's really cool that right now you have more time to, explore new stuff finally.
Yeah.
So we'd like to know if ad monetization had never been your career, what path would you have taken?
Well, I don't know. I mean, like, I thought there for a while I was going to do finance and be an entrepreneur, but I guess no. I don't know. I really like the mobile industry. Like, I meet a lot of people sometimes who are jaded with the industry and kind of want to get out of it. I'm just like, no, you don't realize how bad it is outside of mobile. It's a gray industry where it's like dynamic and fun, and you shouldn't probably leave it. But yeah, honestly, like, I never thought I would work in gaming, and I'm glad I did. And I'm glad I don't have to, be, what's it called? Yeah, a finance bro. I honestly like can't think of anything better. Like it's a bit of a weird one, but I actually really love what I do, and yeah, it's fun.
What about like how did you first get into ad monetization?
Basically, I was on the other side, right? So I was always selling stuff to publishers on the publisher side, so like SDK integrations and stuff like that. I had a friend who was working at a really big gaming company, and I basically was curious. So I offered her money to teach me how it works on the other side. And essentially she taught me. And then basically I was managing Tetris. And then I eventually got offered the job to be the Ad Mon manager. Basically like Ad Mon is, it's basically part being grumpy, a part knowing what's going on the other side. There's not a lot of ad mon managers. I've actually worked in a network or a DSP, which is kind of to my benefit. And it's a very dirty industry, right? So basically you don't know what the margins are. You don't know what's going on the other side. So actually knowing really helps, which is great. But yeah, I mean, it kind of just flowed naturally. I was just very curious because, if you've been selling something for 4 years, sometimes it would make sense to buy it and you can kind of add a lot of value to it. And then, yeah, I guess I met Matija and Jakub at my first conference on my first month in the industry. So it was just, meant to be, I think.
Everything has a reason.
Yeah, exactly. The dots only make sense looking in like reverse, never when it happens, right?
Actually, like on the grumpy adjective, like that's so true. Because like, that I also worked on the ad network side, not just selling, but also I did operations for like ad ops and user acquisition for some game companies. Everyone is just trying to, get the best out of it. It's kind of like there's a pretty big competition over there. Actually, last week I saw a post on LinkedIn, a guy from like one of the big publishers. He was telling that when he sees all the like Q4 results of the ad networks, he says all the gaming industry are suffering on the ad monetization while like ad networks are doubling the profit over and over. That's like crazy.
I mean, it's less now because it's all done with algorithms, right? So basically, when I started, it was like literally you could draw a correlation, like the amount of abuse you took, like you gave to an ad network, usually meant you had lower margins, right? So I think it was in 2021 that Unity changed it. So basically, the account manager at Unity for the ad mon side used to have a drop-down menu where they set margin. So basically, like, you could add a lot of pressure and get a lot better deals, right? So there's still some networks you can do it, but like Google, Facebook, the other ones, like it doesn't happen anymore, unfortunately. So it's changing a little bit, but there's still other stuff to do. There's always, like, it's just a weird industry, right? So yeah.
Yeah, especially there are so many tricks, especially I think the GAN trick story was the like by far the funniest one.
I don't even know how to explain that to anyone. Like it's just ridiculous. But yeah,
I'm happy that it's finally over.
Yeah.
So actually, I would like to ask about like it's been already years. Like, what would you say about the weirds or the most surprising thing that you learned or you saw in mobile ad?
It's the weirdest I've seen. I mean, there's a lot of weird stuff that happens all the time. What Ad Mon has turned into is that basically, ad mon managers that know how it works inside of several networks are at an advantage. And basically, it's really good if you know things. And basically, it's only that, right? So the more you know, the more sophisticated you are. And then the more you know, the more shocked you are at some things, right? Let me think of something. I mean, like, it's just the whole GAM thing is shocking when that was happening. It was interesting to say the least, but it's probably not the most shocking. The most shocking probably is just like the whole margin thing, how it's just changed. Like even at DSPs and stuff like that. Like, I mean, even when I worked at a network, you can look at my LinkedIn and find out which one. But like, you know, like we used to decrease the clickable pixels during high eCPM moments and stuff like that, right? Like it's Wild West. I don't think they still do it, but yeah, it's pretty wild. Probably if I have to say anything right now, it's probably the rise of the aggressive end cards and how that's just become a thing. Like, you know, rewarded videos were 30 seconds. Now they're a minute 14.
Yeah, crazy.
You also talk about industry trends. What's one prediction that you made that turned out to be completely wrong or maybe completely right?
Ooh, I mean, predictions are hard to make. I tend not to do them. I made one big prediction in December last year that app loving will go to 700, and I still think they will. That's like the only time I put my neck on the line. Predictions, like I've been not very vocal about it. I really did think that one company was going to allow meta mediation or post-bid or pre-bid. Basically how mediation is done on desktop is very different from how it's done on mobile. And when I say different, it's done better on desktop. And when I mean better, I mean more fairly. So basically on desktop, you usually have a pre-bid, a private auction, and a post-bid. So basically every bid goes into very, very like quite a lot of scrutiny on top of the main mediation. In mobile, that's not allowed because basically you get shut out of the main platforms, right? So that's kind of one of the main things and it's just not allowed. I thought that would be a thing, but it's not a thing and no one's really asking about it. So I guess not.
That's true. And like from this answer, can we understand that majority of your investments in AppLovin stocks?
I have a little bit in AppLovin, but most of my stuff is in gold ETFs.
Makes sense. On the monetization side, of course, we also wanted to ask about like in current gaming market, like what do you think about the common mistake that most of the studios consistently make and still don't learn or slow to learn?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing with ads is, right, it's a dirty word, right? So like usually you have like two types of developers. You have the idealists or then you have the pragmatists, right? So those are the two different ones. A lot of the developers, typically the ones that made it big 2011 to 2016, they tend to be very against ads, right? And not think about how you can integrate them in a way that doesn't interrupt too much, where you don't get user complaints, right? So if you look at some games with Voodoo, like they have, or like even a better example, We Are Warriors, they have 15 to 16 rewarded impressions on 82% of their user base per day, which is crazy on that game, right? So basically they've actually discovered that adding ads basically earns them money. And at one point they were earning crazy amount of revenue. I think I estimated on our podcast that they were earning something like 200 or 300K a day from rewarded ads, right? Which is nuts. And basically the retention was amazing. So they figured out actually how to design it really well and monetize really well, right? So most mistakes that idealists or people like from early days do is they don't design the game with ads in mind to start with, right? They add it on a bit later and that never works. So like bolting on ads is very hard. You need to think about how it actually works in the core gameplay. And also one other thing is like, you can change end cards and make them less aggressive if you ask networks to do it. The unfortunate truth is that it's harder to get big in gaming because there's a lot of things that fight against you. So like you don't get to speak to anyone at, these big networks until you're, earning at least 10K a day or spending X amount every day, right? Which is hard, right? Because then you can't change these things which help you quite a lot. So yeah, it's a very unfair industry, but I don't know any industry that's not unfair. And I guess just the way of life.
Welcome to the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, could you tell us some ad monetization strategies that are underrated or overlooked?
I mean, I can't give away too much secret sauce, but basically like the most simple things, right? So if you do these things, you're better than probably, I'd say 70% of people that have ad revenue. It doesn't matter if you make $100 a day or if you make $100,000 a day. These things are always universally true, right? So the first thing is adding a mediation platform will double your ad revenue. And basically, the golden rule is that you keep adding networks as long as they make about 5% of monthly revenue or daily revenue, however you want to look at it. It's called share of revenue. And basically, what you're optimizing for is the overall share of revenue and competitiveness. So basically, eCPM, which is what everyone talks about in ad monetization, right? That's how much you get paid per every impression. And it's like the golden metric that people always think about. But basically, eCPM is decided by like a bunch of factors. And basically at its core, it's the performance that networks are seeing from their ads in your game in the last 7 days on a rolling average. And that's what decide how much your user base is worth. Also, kind of one of these factors is like organic versus inorganic, because then there's more information on those users, and that's what brings up eCPM. So the only thing that you impact in the calculations for algorithms is competitiveness. So the more networks you have that compete, that is better for you. And basically that's the only thing you can do. So a network is only really competitive in your stack if it's making at least 5% a month, right? Then there's a bunch of other stuff when you get into the nitty-gritty stuff. So ad monetization, when you're making 10K a day, 50K a day, or 100K a day is very different. And the more you earn a day, the more exciting it is, because the more insider knowledge you get like to you. Like there's a bunch of networks that have like brand demand that you don't get access to unless you have a certain amount of like thresholds. And it's very hidden. And if you don't ask, you don't get, because you don't know. And then like, it's like, they'll never tell you, right? So even negotiations for integration bonuses or mediation like discussions, it all varies on size and how much, not angry, but like how grumpy you get, right? So the kind of publishers that I've worked with that I admire the most, they're always the grumpiest. Like not with me, well, sometimes with me, but like, yeah, they get more. Yeah.
That's some valuable thing that you just talked about.
Yeah.
Well, are there any ad formats or trends that you think will dominate in the next years?
App open ads. So basically not the Google format, where basically it's like a splash screen for 5 seconds when you open the app. They have too low eCPM. But what's really taken foot now started with Hexasort, I guess, when they do a rewarded app open interstitial, which is just a really clever ad where you give a reward every time on subsequent app opens. And then what you think about it, it's just genius, because every time you reopen a game to play it, if it's sticky, you start with a revenue event. And it's also trickled down now that I played some of the games that are coming out of Vietnam. They basically just started doing interstitials on like second app opens. So if you have a really sticky game, like why not? And that's going to start to dominate. But you got to remember with ads as well, like they might be annoying, but it's also enabling the whole ecosystem to exist, because basically ads got invented because of the fact that discoverability on the app stores is terrible. And if the discoverability is terrible, like you're not going to have a thriving ecosystem if you can't buy new users. So like half of the traffic or half of downloads on the App Store is completely inorganic, right? So ads are making this ecosystem work, and it wouldn't work without it. And basically, yeah, it's a good thing.
Noted.
That's a pretty solid answer, actually. And like while you were chatting, I'm just curious about the integration bonus stuff. How is it now? Is it like still aggressive? Just like
I don't want to say numbers because then I always get in trouble.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of times I got in trouble for saying too much stuff, but let's just say it's like 1/4 of what it was 2-3 years ago during like the main mania.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it's really decreased. Still, there's competitive deals out there that I've heard of in the last like 2-3 months. I've personally done, I think 6 or 7 mediation negotiations in the last 2 years, and they're decreasing in value. They're not as valuable as they used to be.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
There's still value to be had, but basically like it's not as juicy as it used to be.
Yeah, like I remember those days, like with crazy amount of money, especially for the like, you know, even Applovin and Unity.
After Mopub, that was like make it rain. Like the Ad Mon manager was the favorite person of the CEO. Like you could just walk in and you could get $1 million deal for basically anything.
Yeah, exactly. I remember the numbers from like big guys, like really crazy. Yeah, like actually wanted to ask about like what is the current situation for like aggressive ad revenue versus player retention, because especially in hyper casual scenario, like nobody was caring about the user. It was literally like squishing the rock out of nothing. And how is it now? Is it still same?
Yes. I mean, like, I don't think hyper casual is dead yet. Like, I still see like stuff in the charts. I'm looking at it every week when I write my newsletter, and there's still so many titles that are just coming up that are complete hyper casual, not even hybrid, right? So I don't think it's a dead genre at all. It's a bit more difficult, but it's not dead. In terms of like aggressive formats, like they're as aggressive as you wanted to make if you're these big guys, right? Like you don't have to have the most aggressive ones, but there seems to be a really big space for example, puzzle genre that's driven by ads and IAP. The hybrid casual space is very interesting to watch, and it's very fun to see how good Vietnam and the Vietnamese studios have gotten very quickly at this. They still haven't cracked the nut of IAP revenue, really. But yeah, they're really giving you Turks a good run for your money.
Yeah, actually, we have a game part in the end, and it's like quick fire, and
Yes.
like you can still go for one quick sentence explanation. So yeah, let's go then. Working from home or a cool office?
Home.
Working solo or working with a cool team?
Cool team, I would say.
Late night grin or early morning hustling?
Depends.
No, both. I for some reason I don't work well in afternoons. Like I work good in the mornings and the evenings. I don't work well in the afternoons.
Hyper casual ad monetization versus hybrid casual ad monetization?
Hybrid, because it's a bit more interesting. Also, you can get users to watch more ads and they were happy about it. So hybrid for sure.
Yeah, and actually I just remembered, if you didn't read Mobile Ad's newsletter, he wrote about Vietnamese mobile gaming scene currently, so please read it. Sorry for the advertising break.
There we go. Don't worry. I appreciate it.
Of course, of course. So, ad monetization joy, iOS or Android?
I mean, the crazy thing is, that's a really good one. As one person, I had to say Android because eCPMs are actually quite higher usually right now. So Android.
Another Ad Mon joy, Tier 1 or Tier 2 monetization?
Tier 1.
Of course, including
Yeah.
US.
Only US. Yeah, for me, tier 1 is only US. That's the only tier 1. Everything
Yeah.
else is like Europe,
fake.
tier 2. Tier 2.
Yeah. Maximizing revenue or maximizing user experience?
Maximizing revenue over time.
A bit grumpy. Just a bit slightly.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep with easy question. AppLovin max or Unity level play?
They're very good at different things. I can't tell you now.
Okay, yeah, I know. AdMob mediation versus in-house cool mediation.
Never build your own mediation platform, ever. It's like you can't do it anymore. Like anyone who says this, like you don't realize you'll never have access to Google bidding. You're like, yeah, the industry's cornered already. Like there's no new entrants. Like you can't build it yourself.
Yeah. There is no room for new ad networks, like, come on. Full bidding versus old and gold waterfall days.
Old and gold waterfall days. It was boring as shit to update it, but it looked like it performed a lot better.
Playground with GAM ad units versus AdMob ad units.
Back in the glory days, it was both, right? Yeah. I don't know. None of them
same.
really work anymore, so it's like
Yeah. One SDK for everything or multiple specialized SDK.
ideally one SDK, but
Yeah, but doesn't work mostly. Ad impressions versus ARPU.
ARPU,
eCPM versus high fill rate.
whatever equals the highest ad revenue. Good question though.
Definitely solid. High daily active user with low ARPU or low daily active user with high ARPU.
For me, I mean, I'm an ad person. It's a volume game, right? So it has to be high amount of users.
Yeah. A/B testing. Small chains or big shots.
So A/B testing for placements, I'd say small changes.
More ads, more revenue, or fewer ads, better retention.
I'm gonna quote CEO of Bernie Games here. Yeah, depends on the
Anatoly.
user. Yeah, depends on the user.
Greetings to Anatoly from here. Direct deal or programmatic?
Programmatic.
Pure ads, hybrid monetization.
What does that even mean?
Like 100% only Ad Mon or IAP included monetization would be your...
The ideal one is IAP plus Ad Mon because you usually get higher ECPMs for it. But, there's a lot of students that are making everything work.
Banners versus interstitials from just personal joy.
Banners.
Mine would be interstitial, for example, yeah. Privacy update site. Do you think challenge or big opportunities over there?
Boring. No, it's just, my mind, I hate it, but I have to deal with it. But there's opportunities. I mean, a client of mine just increased ad revenue by 40% by adding a CMP, which is quite impressive. So yeah, there's definitely gains to be had by being compliant.
Last one. Which is worse? Boring app open ads or famous uncloseable X button?
Ooh, which one is worse? Uncloseable X button.
Probably the worst one would be the X button that you actually 100% click correctly and you still go to App Store.
Yeah. That was fun. I like that. I've never had a rapid fire before. That was really good.
So before we wrap things up, we got one last question for you. What are the top 3 games that you've got your eye on right now? Whether it's for the monetization strategies, game design, we want to know what's on your radar.
𝐻𝐿 really interesting what they're doing on the ad revenue side. 𝐷 is scaling crazily, and I'm trying to find out what's the difference between that and all the other Mahjong games. And then I always keep an eye on 𝐻𝐿 because, I think it's going to go down in the last year. It's probably one of the most innovative games. But there's so many games from Rollick. There's so much stuff coming out. There's a lot of good stuff. Everything coming out of Grand Games as well. There's just so much going on.
So
Turkish Studios.
Yeah.
Wow, so we came to the end of an era here. Felix, since you are so experienced with podcasting, would you do us a favor and finalize this podcast?
This has been another lovely podcast by Gaming. And what the number is it? Is the second one? Third one?
Third one.
Third one. This has been
Or
the third
maybe-
installment.
Or actually, it's not 3. It's 2.5. Because
2.5. Nice.
𝐍𝐞𝐰 and you now.
Oh, nice. Cool. Well, this has been another lovely episode of the newly started Gaming podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. This podcast occurs once a week. Don't forget to share with your friends. Pets, animals, dogs, and cats. Cats love podcasts. We'll see you next time. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.